If it's about love, if it's about justice.
Hey, what's up everybody? This is Austin Haynes with the Waking Justice Project, and this is your daily wake-up call. Here's what the Corporatocracy is up to today, January 21st, 2020. Beginning today through January 24th, the world's most powerful bankers and corporate elites and their appointed political leaders will be attending the annual World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland. And the keynote speaker for the opening ceremony today was 16-year-old climate activist Greta Thunberg. In her opening speech, Greta delivered a blistering indictment of the financial elites' inaction on the climate emergency. We've included the full transcript to Greta's speech in the article for this podcast, and in a moment, we'll present the recording of her speech for you. But first, here's a brief history of the annual forum in Davos. It began in 1971 as a conference of about 400 of Europe's top CEOs. The mission of that first meeting was to promote American forms of international business management. It occurred the same year that US President Richard Nixon abandoned the gold standard to adopt the petrodollar system for sustaining the value of US currency. In the decade prior, the US dollar had been losing value due to overspending on the US military-industrial complex, especially in Vietnam. European nations had begun cashing in their US dollars, demanding gold in return. To stop the run of US gold reserves, Nixon abruptly eliminated the gold standard in favor of the petrodollar system. It was later revealed that the petrodollar system was part of a secret deal brokered by the Nixon administration with Saudi Arabia. The Saudis were the single largest producer of global oil, and with the Nixon deal, they agreed to trade their oil exclusively in US dollars, creating massive global demand for US currency. Of course, this move greatly empowered the US banking system, Wall Street, and US corporate elites over the IMF, World Bank, World Trade Organization, Bank for International Settlements, UN, OECD, and other Western institutions of global financial governance. Thus began US-led globalization and the coalescence of transnational corporations in what we call the US-led corporatocracy. And ever since, the World Economic Forum at Davos has served as an annual meeting for Western corporate elites and their chosen political and bureaucratic leaders. In later years, in response to growing criticism of corporate power, Davos organizers have invited various celebrities and outstanding critics of corporate globalization to attend and present their concerns. Greta Thunberg attended Davos at their annual meeting last year, and due to her continued progress in promoting the climate crisis, she was invited this year to be the keynote speaker for opening remarks. Here's the recording of Greta's speech at the 2020 World Economic Forum in Davos.
1 year ago, I came to Davos and told you that our house is on fire. I said I wanted you to panic. I've been warned that telling people to panic about the climate crisis is a very dangerous thing to do. But don't worry, it's fine. Trust me, I've done this before, and I can assure you it doesn't lead to anything. And for the record, when we children tell you to panic, we're not telling you to go on like before. We're not telling you to rely on technologies that don't even exist today at scale, and that science says perhaps never will. We are not telling you to keep talking about reaching net zero emissions or carbon neutrality by cheating and fiddling around with numbers. We're not telling you to offset your emissions by just paying someone else to plant trees in places like Africa, while at the same time forests like the Amazon are being slaughtered at an infinitely higher rate. Planting trees is good, of course, but it's nowhere near enough. of what is needed, and it cannot replace real mitigation and rewilding nature. And let's be clear, we don't need a low carbon economy. We don't need to lower emissions. Our emissions have to stop if we are to have a chance to stay below the 1.5 degree target. And until we have the technologies that at scale can put our emissions to minus, then we must forget about net zero. We need real zero. Because distant net zero emission targets will mean absolutely nothing if we just continue to ignore the carbon dioxide budget that applies for today, not distant future dates. If high emissions continue like now, even for a few years, that remaining budget will soon be completely used up. The fact that the USA is leaving the Paris Accord seems to outrage and worry everyone, and it should. But the fact that we are all about to fail the commitments you signed up for in the Paris Agreement doesn't seem to bother the people in power even the least. Any plan or policy of yours that doesn't include radical emission cuts at the source starting today is completely insufficient for meeting the 1.5 or well below 2 degree commitments of the Paris Agreement. And again, this is not about right or left. We couldn't care less about your party politics. From a sustainability perspective, the right, the left, as well as the center have all failed. No political ideology or economic structure has been able to tackle the climate and environmental emergency and create a cohesive and sustainable world. Because that world, in case you haven't noticed, is currently on fire. You say children shouldn't worry. You say, just leave this to us. We will fix this. We promise we won't let you down. Don't be so pessimistic. And then, nothing. Silence. Or something worse than silence. Empty words and promises which give the impression that sufficient action is being taken. All the solutions are obviously not available within today's societies, nor do we have the time to wait for new technological solutions to become available to start drastically reducing our emissions. So of course, the transition isn't going to be easy. It will be hard, and unless we start facing this now, together with all cards on the table, we won't be able to solve this in time. In the days running up to the 50th anniversary of the World Economic Forum, I joined a group of climate activists demanding that you, the world's most powerful and influential business and political leaders, begin to take the action needed. We demand at this year's World Economic Forum participants from all companies, banks, institutions and governments immediately halt all investments in fossil fuel exploration and extraction, immediately end all fossil fuel subsidies, and immediately and completely divest from fossil fuels. We don't want these things done by 2050, 2030 or even 2021. We want this done now. It may seem like we are asking for a lot, and you will of course say that we are naive. But this is just the very minimum amount of effort that is needed to start the rapid sustainable transition. So either you do this, or you're going to have to explain to your children why you are giving up on the 1.5 degree target. Giving up without even trying. Well, I'm here to tell you that, unlike you, My generation will not give up without a fight. The facts are clear, but they are still too uncomfortable for you to address. You just leave it because you think it's too depressing and people will give up. But people will not give up. You are the ones who are giving up. Last week, I met with Polish coal miners who lost their jobs because their mine was closed. And even they had not given up. On the contrary, they seem to understand the fact that we need to change more than you do. I wonder, what will you tell your children was the reason to fail and leave them facing a climate chaos that you knowingly brought upon them? That it seemed so bad for the economy that we decided to resign the idea of securing future living conditions without even trying? Our house is still on fire. Your inaction is fueling the flames by the hour. And we are telling you to act as if you loved your children above all else. Thank you.
Again, that was Greta Thunberg's opening speech at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland on January 21st, 2020. Great job, sister. If you want to learn more about how all of us in the work of global justice can join together in strategic boycott and finally force this corporatocracy to the people's bargaining table to end all this injustice and corruption and to help save our planet, please visit our website at wakingjustice.org. You can check out our About page and listen to our first podcast. And if you want more info on how you can get involved, you can email us at info@wakingjustice.org. We'd love to hear from you. But we're running out of time, y'all. So join us. Peace.
You must be involved in the struggle for freedom and justice.
If it's about love, if it's about
Justice is waking, justice is rising. Justice is waking, justice is rising.
If it's about
Justice is
love,
waking, justice is rising. And it ain't just us, it's all of us. Justice is waking, justice is rising. And it ain't just us, it's all of us.
if it's about love.
May every soul unite, tend the fire and let all coals relight. I'm a citizen of the world and we fight for the rights of everybody to live a truly free life. Red or yellow, black or white, left or right, gay or straight, human or animal, all life. Cause what matters is what is in common. If you know it, stand tall and keep dropping the knowledge.
Justice is waking, justice is rising. And it ain't just us, it's all of us.
If it's about love.